Michael, how are you? You are a very awesome person to follow on Twitter. I just want to.
Oh, really? I mean, I appreciate that. I never know how to really quite deal with any of the compliments on what I do. I guess like what I do is so, I don't know, dark and dealing with problem things that you just
Right.
you take all the hits and you don't see any of the victories. So I
Right.
don't. Thanks for saying that. But anyway, so I was a Baltimore police sergeant for 11 years, doing different supervisory things there. I was a major case narcotics detective. And to make it as short as possible, I eventually ended up setting myself towards the scholarly endeavors to try and write policing. But then, in the midst of those scholarly endeavors, Black Lives Matter came to the rise, and
Hmm.
the deaths of Tamir Rice and Freddie Gray just really
Right.
struck me, not just intellectually but emotionally. I've never been able to get past, especially Tamir's murder,
Right.
and now I see myself as setting the goal to try and figure out what these reforms are and how we take policing to the next level, reforming it in whatever, however we break that discussion down.
Great. Great. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. How are you?
I'm doing well, Nolan. Thank you so much for the work that you do and for allowing me to join you this evening. And
Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
my pleasure. And Michael Wood, shout out to you. So my name is Dr. Karen Johnson, and I'm chair of the Black Alliance of Thurston County. We formed in 2005 after two young Black men were shot in Olympia, Washington. Thank God they were not killed. We can only wonder if they were shot at all, though, is because they were Black. We wonder if they were white, if the result would have been the same. And so the police chief wanted to get together and meet with Black leaders in the community to begin having conversations around institutional racism. And before we met with the chief of police, though, we, the Black leaders, did get together and decided, first of all, we knew the young Black men were going to be charged. That pretty much is the MO. Shoot us. If we live, we're charged with assault. So we really weren't going to get caught up in whether or not the police officer was charged or whether the young men were charged. We decided instead what we needed to do was to fix our use of deadly force law, which is the most egregious in the United States of America. If the young man, Mr. Terrence in Tulsa, if that scene had gone down here in the state of Washington, the police officer would not have been charged. We have a requirement that malice need to be shown in a police shooting. Bad faith is unique. They have to demonstrate that the killing was executed in bad faith. Also, it pretty much is what some call a license to kill. And so the work that we here in our community is around is getting this law changed and such that police officers who unjustifiably kill people are able to be criminally charged. And right now we're in the middle of a joint legislative task force with 26 members from the legislature in the state, from law enforcement and the community, working out and figuring out what kind of best practices do we need to reduce these violent interactions and lethal interactions between law enforcement and the community. So we're talking about and looking at how do we need to change this law and to hold our police officers accountable, that then could build some public trust and as well as protect the safety and the lives of the police.
Interesting. Excellent. So just to kind of just start, like I said, starting with a framing conversation, and I'll kind of start off with Michael, since you do have, knowledge, professional knowledge, and like you said, academic expertise as well. Just thinking about like how, from either your experience or research, how these types of incidences are even handled, right? Because we know that, officers are often in situations where they have to react on the spot to whatever set of stimuli or anything that's going on. But like, what are some of the issues, I think, to just break it down a little bit on a simple level, what are some of the issues that, exist in terms of the way maybe their officers are instructed in terms of what force to use and how it actually plays out in the field itself?
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of like take a far left turn on this, maybe that you weren't anticipating. It's that all of these things that we talk about for human interaction. So human interactions run the gamut. Anybody can respond in any way. That's not really our problem. Our problem is the system that's in place that surrounds
Okay.
this decision-making process. And in this
Okay.
system, American policing is a very unique beast. It comes from three different things, and that is the recapturing and apprehension of slaves, from the protection of white property, and from the continued genocide of the Aboriginal people, the Native Americans here in this country. So you can turn on TV now and you can watch the CVS of Baltimore be looped over and over, and that's the protection of white property. We yell at protesters as a society saying, "What are you doing? You're doing this, you're doing that," and that's people freaking
Right.
out over white property being destroyed, and not like at the care and concern of in Baltimore, where it was Freddie Gray who was the only person that was ever killed in the entire incident. So that's the recapturing and putting slaves back into the new Jim Crow. And we can watch in North Dakota as policing continues the genocide of the Native American people. So as
Yes.
long as we operate in that paradigm, I don't see solutions as being actually viable.
Interesting. Dr. Johnson, if you want to.
Oh, you know, Michael, I love you in the most professional way. I am blowing you a kiss right now. So I suspect that you have just set me up to begin with the Emancipation Proclamation specifically, and I quote, "And as a fit and necessary military measure for effecting this object, I, as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, do order and declare that on the first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or states wherein the constitutional authority of the United States shall not then be practically recognized, submitted to, and maintained, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever be free." And I would submit that what we are really looking at are the final vestiges of racism, which really is a smoke and mirror for greed, power, and control. Because Black people were brought here from Africa to be enslaved so that they could be free labor, so white people could become rich, harvesting tobacco. And we're the only people that, based on skilled color, that equates to slavery, inferior, and other narrative that obviously is inappropriate and unacceptable, because we are not only still here, we are still thriving. Furthermore, as Grandma Alice would say, you don't mess with junk. But nevertheless, what I'm looking at, and Michael will hit it dead on in terms of the systemic racism. But see, we've been conditioned that Black people are dangerous, lazy, not to be trusted. The police indeed were empowered to kill, destroy, maim, and otherwise decimate Black people in general, Black men in particular. That is why they were hung, lynched, and beaten, particularly in front of other Black young men, so that they would be taught how to behave, and in front of Black women, so that they would teach their sons to be docile. And when we think about, in not too terribly long ago, the Klan were indeed law enforcers and were again given the opportunity and expected indeed to keep Black people under control. And so therefore, I sat in on the Washington State Patrol simulator to see how police were trained to interact with individuals in determining to kill or not kill, shoot or not shoot, or use some non-lethal force. And I wasn't doing that because I already know that these are split-second decisions. I did it to see if that same tool can be used to recondition our law enforcement officers and possibly even society. Because if any of us take the Harvard Project Implicit test and we're flashed images and have to make split-second decisions on whether or not we feel safe or unsafe, people, be they Black, white, Asian, Native Americans, whatever, typically indicate that they feel safer with white people than Black people. And that is due to conditioning, brainwashing. You see, that is why from the helicopter in Tulsa, we heard the officer say, "Oh, that looks like a big bad dude." How do we even know that? See, that comes from what he is storing in his subconscious. So I really see that we are living at a time where we have an opportunity to once and for all own our bias, deal with our bias, and learn how to replace that hate with love. Dr. King was right. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Otherwise, we're on a
Mhm.
course to destroy ourselves, because you see, we are at the place now where people who feel as though justice is askew as it relates to them are now taking justice into their own hand. Case in point, the young man who killed those police in Dallas. We in our community
Right.
after that then had skinheads come forth and decided they were going to stab a black man and his white girlfriend to protect the police. And so we have all this hatred now that's being released and embedded in our systems of operations here in this society. And once again, I think it is time for us to decide that we're either going to come together as human and live together in a beloved community, or we're going to destroy ourselves based on something so irrelevant as skin color, over which, by the way, no one had an opportunity to decide. No one had the opportunity to decide which earth suit they were going to walk out this journey called life in. And so I see this as an opportunity for us to rise up and deal with what we're storing in our beliefs, our values, our principles, and get past the greed, power, and control. This is an elitist system and structure in place to maintain the establishment, to maintain control. Because I'm almost through. Because you
You're
see,
fine. You guys are giving me light tonight.
where I
This is
am,
awesome.
where
Go ahead.
I brought up Abraham Lincoln. So after he was
Mhm.
killed, after the Emancipation Proclamation, we then go into Reconstruction, and that is the only time in American history where black people and poor white people came together and ruled the land until
Yes.
white people were sold Jim Crow. And even though it didn't put any food in their belly or any clothes on their backs, they thought that they were better than black people because they were white. And that's when all of us were booted out of office by the elitists. And there we are today. I will rest my peace right there.
Okay, great. Because you guys actually brought up too, and Michael, when you said you're going to make this conversation go left, but that's beautiful because I love actually the direction this is going in anyway. You know, when we're brainstorming kind of how to structure this is awesome though. We're gonna roll with the way you guys set this up.